Hey, Dave Diggle here, just a quick chat, and I want to talk about pressure. Obviously we're going to talk about pressure for athletes, but before we do that, let's talk about what is pressure. Well, pressure is putting you outside your comfort zone. It's making you feel uncomfortable. It's doing something that you maybe never done before, or the expectations that you need to deliver on that are higher than normal. The consequences are greater. That is pressure. So if we put that in context for athletes, what we're talking about is maybe learning a new skill or trying to refine a skill that we already can do, or maybe even compete a skill or perform a skill for verification or selection. Anytime we get put in an uncomfortable position, be that for an outcome, or be that because we're uncomfortable because we fear it, we get pressure. Now, pressure is designed specifically to keep us safe. It's our brain's way of managing those circumstances in that situation. What it's looking to do is to protect you from that. So it applies pressure hoping that you're going to stop. And that makes perfect sense. It's a really good strategy. It's something that's kept us as a species together and alive for a really long time. Because if we're going to talk about pressure as an athlete, ultimately it's on game day. When you step out in front of all of those people and perform your sport the best way you can, that's ultimately what we're talking about with pressure. Let's understand what the brain's doing first of all in making the pressure uncomfortable. What it's trying to do is to eliminate risk, eliminate danger, and it's trying to get you to stop doing what's making you feel uncomfortable. So that degree of pressure is designed specifically to try and make it so uncomfortable you go, yeah, I don't want to be here, I'm going to go do something else. And let's be honest, it doesn't matter if it's a university, a school exam, or a performance on the pitch. We've all been there where we go, what am I doing? Why am I here? Why do I want to do this? Why do I put myself through this every single week? We've all done that. So the concept of pressure is designed specifically to make it uncomfortable in an effort to stop us doing what we're doing. But as athletes, we choose to put ourselves in that situation every week, don't we? We train and we practice in order to perform, to be selected to represent our country or even our university. That concept of putting ourselves in that uncomfortable position specifically to perform, it goes against our natural internal survival mechanism. So we need to be able to do it smarter. At the end of this, stick around because I'm going to teach you a couple of strategies that I teach my athletes when they go to compete somewhere new. So let's understand what the pressure is. So if this is your norm, your normal capacity for managing stress and strains and pressure, so meet norm. When we apply pressure to that, it changes your norm. We bend and we bow to accommodate that pressure. Think of this like a big tall skyscraper. If it had no movement, if it had no latitude to move under the wind, then in big storms it would crack and potentially fall down. So big buildings like that are designed to move with the extreme conditions. Human behavior is exactly the same. When we get put under pressure, we accommodate that pressure and we bow with it. Because when the pressure is relieved and stopped and we bounce back to our normal, that is mental resilience. So in sport, when we get put under that pressure, be that competition or a scary skill, and that pressure is eliminated, taken away, end of the competition, end of doing that skill, and we bounce back to normal and we can operate on our normal levels, that mental resilience is what teaches how far we can get pushed. So if we go back to our norm and we get applied pressure again, be that a new skill or a competition, and we accommodate that and we bow with that, but when the pressure is relieved, the end of the competition, the end of that skill, if we don't bounce back, That's what we call mental fragility. And that change in our behavior changed based on the pressure that was applied. Unless you learn how to manage it, the reality is you're going to keep that same level of pressure all the time. You've now just changed your normal position, your mental capacity to think, operate, and manage stressful situations. Just go back to our normal again. And the pressure gets applied, again, be that a competition or a scary skill or selection. And when the pressure is eliminated and we not only bounce back to our norm, but we improve, we grow, that's called anti-fragility. That means we've utilized that pressure to become better than we was before the pressure. It is this that we're aiming to do every single time that we get put in a stressful situation. As athletes, as competitors, what we're looking to do is constantly grow and improve. So our ability to not only be put under pressure, but to grow from that pressure is what's going to allow us as athletes to constantly improve our ability to manage pressure. So, pressure is a good thing as long as it's managed correctly, as long as we have the right mindset around how we operate and optimize pressure. So let's go back to our norm one more time. And when we get put under that pressure, what it does, it exposes us to things that we haven't been exposed to before. And as it uncovers those different layers of our capacity, learned skills, and we realize that we can operate, manage in those, we're learning things about ourselves. And it is this mindset that makes the biggest difference when we're working with athletes, when discussing pressure. We want athletes to be able to not run away from pressure, not try to avoid the pressure, which is a human nature behavior, by the way, is what most people will do when they get put under pressure. They're looking to get out of there, or they're looking to minimize or stop or reduce that pressure. So learning to embrace pressure is a critical component of high performance. What we're looking to do is extend our skill set, our mental capacity, our mental resilience, our ability to be able to be pushed further and further and still be able to bounce back and optimize from that. We now know that PTSD has multiple layers to it. Of course, it has that big extreme reaction to life-threatening and life-changing circumstances and situations. However, there's also a number of grey areas in between. You go into a competition and you underperform, or you go into a competition and you hurt yourself, or even you just create a skill that you're incredibly scared of. That will have an impact on you. That is a post-traumatic stress, something that has altered your behavior based on that threat or that perception of threat. So if we've got a PTSD perspective and scale that we can look at, and sometimes we put ourselves in situations where we have those extreme reactions to those stressful situations, then we've got to look at a different way of trying to manage that. Now, of course, I'm not talking about the big end scary stuff that people go through, the big life-altering and life-threatening situations. What I'm talking about here is the performers. When they go through events that make them feel a certain way and that changes their normal behavior. Because your brain is stepping in to protect you. When you're in that situation, it's going, okay, I've bent as far as I can possibly go here. I've accommodated this pressure as much as I can. I don't want to do this anymore. And it locks it off in that altered state. And so when you go to think about performing that competition or doing that skill again, your brain is already thinking about that worst case scenario. It's locked off there. That's its normal starting point. So it makes a lot of sense why stressful situations can alter the way we approach competition and skills and our self-confidence. And this is at the root of our imposter syndrome frequently as athletes. The flip side of PTSD is post-traumatic growth. This is where we look to take those things that we've learned under those stressful situations, what we've learned about our capacity to cope and manage, what we've learned as in new skill sets in order to manage those situations, and then use them to improve our norm. How we do what we do and set a new benchmark of how we perform. So this post-traumatic growth is a mindset when we go into stressful situations. And look, as I said before, we are going to put ourselves in incredibly stressful situations frequently as competitive athletes. If we go into those not trying to avoid feeling uncomfortable, because we will feel uncomfortable, we will feel vulnerable, we will feel that what we're trying to do is scary. Competitions is a scary scenario for most people most of the time. So it's not about avoiding that or trying to get to a stage where you go, I just don't care, I don't feel it. It's getting to a point to go, I know I'm going to be nervous, I know I'm ready, and I'm really looking forward to what I can learn about me as an athlete, about my capacity to bounce back from the pressures, and to manage those stresses and strains in the moment. That growth mindset that we can approach that scenario with will allow us to have much more robustness around our ability to deal with stressful situations. Now, I said to you at the start of this, I'd give you a couple of techniques you can use straight away. One of the biggest stressors that we hear often is an athlete will get to a competition or a venue where they don't normally train and go, everything feels different. And it will do. Because when you go somewhere that's unusual, you get set into a heightened state of awareness. All of your senses are on high alert. What they're looking for is threat. When they're looking for threats, what they're looking for are what's potentially here that's going to harm me or threaten me. So when you go to do a routine and you think, okay, this just feels very, very different to where I've trained it, what we're going to try and do is counteract that. So instead of looking for all of those differences, I want you to look for all the similarities. So if you go into a venue, like I work with gymnasts often, and I'll say to them, when you walk in, what's the first things you know when you go to your normal training gym? And often they'll say, everything's normal, everything's the same. Now, I used to move things around for my athletes. I used to stay with one of my racing car drivers in Tokyo. And racing car drivers are renowned for being very pedantic about having things a certain way. So what I used to do is we were going into a race. Every time I was at his place, he had a set of miniature cars underneath his television. So I used to move one slightly each time. And what I was looking for was how quickly did he notice. When I first started doing that, it took him days to notice. I would move the car, I'd go back to my hotel. The next day when I come to pick him up, I'd say, did you notice the car's moved? And he'd go, oh, no. As time went on, he started to become more aware of things around him as we went into competition. What I was trying to do was get his sense of awareness heightened before we got to the track, so that we didn't get to the track and all of a sudden become emotionally overwhelmed with this new sense of awareness of everything around him. It's the same conversation I have with coaches who'll say, as we get closer to a competition, we'll do mock comps, because what I'm trying to do is to desensitize the athletes to the competition. We don't want to desensitize them. We want to optimize them. We want to create a normalized position where they know that they can turn that dial up. They get more focused as they get closer to the competition. That becomes a normalized process. So my gymnasts, when we go to competitions, when we used to walk in there, first of all, they'd always go, oh, it's different. Everything's really different. Everything smells different, everything looks different, the floor's different, the bars are different, the beam's different, the vault's different. And I'd go, okay, stop. What are the sames? What are all the things that are exactly the same as your gym? And initially they would look around and they go, nothing. And I say, okay, is the floor still a square? And they go, oh yeah, of course it is. Is it still flat? Absolutely. Okay, so they're normal now. We've normalized that. They're no different to your gym. It might be a different color, it might be in a different location, but it's also got some similarities too. What about the bars? Are they the same shape? Are they set up the same way? Do they still have mats under them? Are they still got chalk on them? Yeah, okay. So there's some more things, there's more things on there that are normal than are different. So we're looking for those similarities. And the more we got used to doing this as we went to an event, the calmer they became when we went somewhere new. Now that's not only gymnasts. A classic one is with my ice skaters where they'll say the ice feels different. And I go, okay, cool. Is it still white? Yes. Is it still slippery and cold? Yes. So is there more things that are the same than are different? We're not looking for all the threats, we're recognizing a lot of the similarities and a lot of things that are common to us, that commonality. So that strategy alone allows athletes to better manage their emotions and their nerves and to be able to better accommodate the pressure. They can focus on the things that really are different. So what have we learned? Well, we've learned that pressure is normal. It's around us all the time. There isn't any situation we go into that doesn't have some degree of pressure. We've learned that as athletes, we put ourselves in highly pressurized situations frequently, so we better learn how to manage it. We've learned that all pressure is exposing us to a force of difference, be that an increased expectation, be that increased risk, or be that increased consequence. Whatever they are, they're just applying pressure to our normal. Our ability to bounce back to our normal from that is our mental resilience. Our ability to bounce back is a good indicator of our understanding of our normalized position. We also recognize that if we get put under pressure and it changes our shape indefinitely, then that's a fragility in our brain. We have bent to the point where we no longer want to bounce back. We're holding on to that new norm in an effort to stop change. And as much as that is a normal human behavior, it is not beneficial to us as performers. We also recognize that when we do learn all of these new components of what we've been exposed to, the new pressures that we can manage and the new situations and skills we've learned under pressure, we can utilize those to grow. And this post-traumatic growth process allows us to get to anti-fragility. It's where we're positive plus. We've changed our shape, but we've changed our shape for the better. This creates a new normal for us, and we start that cycle again. Once we've grown and that is normalized, that is our new norm. So I hope you've learned a lot about what we can do under pressure. Don't try to avoid it, don't try to run away from it, certainly don't fear it. Embrace it. See it as an opportunity for you to improve what you do. See it as a way that you can become a way more resilient athlete. Enjoy the pressure. Put yourself in situations that are safe, but are going to challenge you. And go in there with a mindset of, I'm going to learn something new about myself today. And what I learn, I'm going to use to grow.